Today I got a chance to talk to Daniel Frazier. So Daniel is the Director of Operations and General Manager for the Pharmacy Burger Parlor and Beer Garden in Nashville. Super cool spot, super cool guy. I had a real blast talking to him about what it's really like to run a restaurant. We got to share some of our trials and tribulations, and it is always a pleasure to talk to someone else in the front lines of service. So thank you for listening to Serves You Right. My name's Andrew, and let's get into it. Daniel Frazier, thank you for joining us today. I was looking into sort of, your work and your life, and I thought I'd open up with a question that sounds strange, but I think kind of hits to the core of a lot of things that I learned about you. So it seems like you are extremely guest focused. It seems like you work hard. You care about the people you work with. Why do you think that you're unique in the restaurant world? Why isn't everyone doing what you're doing?
That's an interesting question. I think that's a really good question. Honestly, I've sort of thought about this on my own. I don't phrase it that way in my head of like, why am I unique? But honestly, I think a lot of times the restaurant world, I guess it's a few things that the people that end up in leadership in the restaurant world are often a certain type of person. And often if you're either a cook or maybe you're in front of house and then you develop the skills to move into leadership, sometimes that the people that end up doing that have a certain abrasive, intense energy sometimes. Not to say they don't care about people, but those people sometimes end up in leadership positions in restaurants just sort of naturally. And so I think over time, when those people get promoted and promoted and promoted, you end up with a certain kind of energy in a lot of spaces. And then the other reason I think a lot of people don't care about people is because not caring about people can make your job easier. Which I know
Yes,
is
yeah.
like if you have to let somebody go, if you have to be hard on someone, when you really care about people, it can make that decision a lot more painful. Um, and and if you're too soft, it can lead to doing to not doing your job and the job you need to do. But that's where having you got to really have a good mental model of what you're doing, and that what's best for the restaurant and what's best for the entire team means that I don't like to call people cancers or that, but it is good to sometimes think of things that way, that bad behavior begets bad behavior. So you can't allow it, or um, you will bring down good people. And then the other thing, just from doing it a long time, I've had to teach myself with on that side is that all the hard decisions I have to make, that as long as you approach it the right way, I've just had story after story where, again, with firings, literally, you let somebody go. It was hurt. It hurt because there was, maybe some relationship, or even if it wasn't a relationship outside of work, there was still a fondness that had developed through working with this person. But a lot of times you end up finding out a year, two, maybe sometimes even 3 years later that they were like, I needed that. I needed to be not here anymore. And usually the whatever had developed around them that was affecting work was something that wasn't even about work. It was something else, but that actually losing their job actually helped them fix it. So I try to approach all these things with a lot of hope that when you're doing hard things, whether it is just coaching someone up or whether it is full on terminating the relationship with the restaurant, hey, it's up to them, but this can actually be what's best for them. And sometimes keeping someone in a job when they've really shown they don't need to be there, it's actually you are not actually helping that person.
Yeah.
You can end up close to enabling.
No, no, and I've heard that before from some people I've had to let go. That has, that made me turn things around, but it's tough. It's you don't know what it's like until you look someone in the face and say, "You're not doing the job that I know you can, and you can't work here anymore." It's before we got on, we were talking about that. Yeah, so
Yeah, and it's funny where after you've let enough people go, you learn that there's really only a handful of ways those conversations go. There's like the quiet acceptance, and then it usually goes pretty quick. there's like the anger response, and then like usually that involves like blaming others and devolving, and then there's like the worst one, which is the usually tears and begging
Tears.
for
Oh
a job.
yes. Sorry.
It-
Yeah.
oh my god, it is terrible. It is
Hmm.
terrible. And no, it is a really that one is the only, the other one, the quiet the quiet resolve is like probably the easiest. The anger one is also easy, and also you end up feeling even more justified in the decision you made after you
It's like
did it. But the
like this is a good call. Good to
yeah,
know.
this is a good
Yes.
call. This is just a symptom of exactly what we were usually dealing with. And then, but the tears is tough, especially when it's someone it's if it's been a longer time with the restaurant, and then there's because we try to keep a family atmosphere. Obviously, we try to also not bring in the aspects of the we're a family uh,
Mhm.
that can lead to bad behavior both by staff and by leadership, to take advantage of people. But because of that, there are strong bonds. And then some people, it's just really hard on them when if you're not, at least at our restaurant. But I know that's any place with people that end up staying for years, that it's just going to be painful if there is a severance.
Yeah. So in our restaurant, we say not that we're a family, but we say we're a team, like a sports team.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
as long as you're doing your job, you're on the team, and we'll fight to the death for you. But the
A
second you're
team is a
not,
great way.
yeah, you may have to
Yes,
get off the
a team
bench.
is the right metaphor because there is a bond that's stronger than coworkers, and then we're all going the same direction. But then again, like a team, you can get kicked off the team. Like
Yeah, yeah,
ideally with family, you can't get kicked out of family, but this is an opt-in
yeah.
relationship.
This is not a therapy podcast. Yeah. No.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you kind of touched on, and I want to kind of double click and explore this. So I run one restaurant, and that is a enough for me. And so you're director of operations, and you have several that you oversee. So how do you
yeah,
manage that? And also, for the people listening that may not be familiar with you, can you tell us a little bit about your place and your job and how you got the job? I know
yeah.
that's
So
like a 10-minute intro there.
thank you. Yeah, so I'm the director of operations and general manager for the pharmacy, burger parlor and beer garden. We have three locations. The flagship, which is where I started and is the first restaurant that's been running for coming on 13 years now. Or excuse me, coming on 14 years now. Um, and is a burger parlor and beer garden in East Nashville. So we focus on craft and import beers, large outdoor space, and then we focus on burgers. We also have some German influence, smoking our own sausages. So I started serving there 11 years ago, and hosting the door, actually, excuse me. Started as a host, worked my way up serving, and on up the chain. And then coming on 3 years ago, excuse me, 4 years ago, got promoted to general manager of that location. The following summer, which was a year later, got promoted to run our assembly food hall location, which had opened just after the pandemic in 2021. Plans for that had happened, I think, going back to 2018 was when we first started looking at that location, and then COVID slowed that production way down because for all the reasons.
Same up here. Yeah.
And then, but then that opened that year, and right after that opened is when the I was the assistant general manager, and the GM at the time stepped down to go on to greener pastures and other opportunities for him, and uh, so then I ran that as the general manager for that year, took over both. That next year, and then we opened the airport location the year after that. Now that is a co-production with uh, a company called HMS Host, who does uh, concessions, specialist concessions in airport spaces. So for that, that's just overseeing. There is no day-to-day operations there. It's overseeing food quality and working with them to make sure there's no issues. So that was a lot of work to set up, and then in that first year, especially, really that first 6 months, that was a lot of work to make sure they were doing. And then from there, it's just maintaining relationship, checking in occasionally. Like we eat there every time I fly out, and then you drop in several times a year. And then obviously, if they have any issues, we have good communication with them. So really from the hands-on side, direct managing, I really just manage the food hall and the East location and our East Nashville location. We're interesting because one of them being in a food hall, one is it's QSR counter service, the other is a full service fast casual restaurant. So both are completely different, very different workflows and the way we do things. The food hall locations on a whole house tip share. The East Nashville location, obviously, there's bartenders, there's runners, there's hosts, there's servers, there's kitchen, all of those things delineated. There is a tip out amongst the
The whole
front of house
shebang.
staff,
Yeah.
but the whole shebang. So again, couldn't be more different. Other than, and then there's a limited menu at the food hall location, featuring items all that are all at East, but East has an expanded menu because there is more capacity to do things. So the only thing that's similar is that they share some menu items, really, and we're called the same thing. Um, that being said, the way you run, and a lot of this I had to learn on the fly because I with they were really fully separated, and we sort of worked together in that first year the food hall location was open, and then I took it over, so that it was developing. Okay, how am I going to do this? How do we run this? So you try to lean on some people in the industry, and you try to gather some things. But the big thing I found, and the when I took over the food hall, there was a GM there that had stepped down as well, or we'd moved on from, and so we didn't have any real leadership there. So the first 6 months we ran it just with some supervisors we'd have there before making a hire for a direct leadership there. So I wanted to spend some time getting it like really being more hands on. Um, Delegation and finding key people to lean on for your day to day operations is like one of the biggest things I've found is really important in multi unit leadership.
Mm.
You have to have people there you can trust to get, and I'm going to say the basics done, but basically get your ordering done, your scheduling done. They're checking in with the employees. It's like big picture things I can handle always, and all our big processes, all our operations, software, all these things. But you've got to find people and develop people to handle your day to day, because I'm still going to deal with day to day things like our service issues, equipment failures and things. You're going to have to be involved with that stuff. But if most of your days can't go smoothly without you being like
Mm.
in it and on it,
Yeah.
you're just going to have problems all the time. You've got to find either with hiring or develop people that are in your team that you can hand off that stuff to. And you got to get comfortable handing it off, and then obviously coaching them up when they need it. If there's development, if there's all the things we know about, but giving them feedback. But the more you can do that, and then them developing the employees to do the jobs with a certain level of autonomy, you're gonna have a hard time succeeding when you're having to be really really hands on.
Mm. What do you look for in these people that you can trust in this leadership role? Uh, yeah.
So yeah, so it depends on the role, but I look for a high level of personal accountability is number one. We being a mom and pop restaurant, or a family owned restaurant, we have systems, we have procedures, we have ways of doing things because we've been open so long. But we also have a lot of freedom and autonomy to do things. So I need someone who's a self starter and someone who doesn't need to be like, I don't need to be pushing you to get things done. That part of it needs to just basically be assumed. Um, I maybe in some other environments, like where the role is potentially more cookie cutter and done by there's handbooks on handbooks on handbooks of things to do. Maybe that's not important, but I feel like in management it is. That's it's kind of a given. But that's thing one I'm looking for. If we're having to do lots of hand holding, it's not gonna work. And then from there, it's people skills. It's great communication for with the staff, and then obviously all restaurant knowledge is a plus, and then we can teach them how we do things. That's never going to be a big challenge. We've had success both promoting from within with people that have been with us, and hiring from outside. I've also found that if you're going to hire from outside and you're using something like either LinkedIn or Indeed, you're just going to need to do an ungodly amount of interviews. I would just
Yes.
talk
Yeah.
to as many people as possible. And if you want to streamline that and you can afford it, I have had success working with a recruiter only a few times, but both hires have now been with us for years and have been really successful. Developing a relationship with a recruiter, if you've got some bandwidth in your budget, it will pay for itself in the long run by actually finding someone good. And again, you're going to spend money, but you will also save a lot of time. So it just depends. If I know most people are both cash poor and time poor. There's both of those
Yes.
in. But if you've got money and not a lot of time, I might use a recruiter. It's probably going to be worth it to actually make a hire and stick with it.
I would like to
But if you've
meet
got
the
time and no money, just do tons of interviews.
yeah, I was like, I'd like to meet the person in the restaurant industry that has lots of money. I don't
All
know.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird. I've never thought of using a recruiter. I've never thought of even going to a recruiter because I've always had a job. Yeah.
Yeah. There. So I've worked with one a couple times, and it was a really good experience because they were people that um, the woman who was doing it, she's near the end of her career, is I guess the way I'd say it, but she owned restaurants, so she knew it. So they were they really focused and specialized on that. Most people using recruiters are really big organizations. So but you find a certain level of professionalism and a when you when you do that. That being said, you also, if you get in the recruiting space, you can also find people that are job hoppers. So you got to be careful with, you got to make sure you're finding someone that's actually dedicated, not someone that's like going to bounce, 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 bounce.
Yeah. Building their resume, not a restaurant sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you are doing these interviews, I'm just curious, do you have a set way that you sort of approach them? Do you kind of see what happens or a little bit of all
Yeah.
the above?
So if I'm hiring for a kitchen manager, uh, I'm gonna curate it to their experience and then the role. So we'll see what their culinary knowledge is. I do really just try to get to know them, and I keep it pretty casual. Um, uh, as far as that, because like I feel like if we're going to be ideally working together for years, like it really helps if we kind of like each other and can kind of find a rapport relatively quickly. That being said, that's not a must. But as long as we can communicate and I can see that you can lead a team, and I think if you talk long enough, you can usually get that out of someone, and someone that either doesn't know what they're talking about or can't back it up. Those things just become apparent again, just by just using your people skills. I will say because the hiring we've done the past few years, I haven't had to hire a manager in several years now. So like I'm not at the hiring is not at the forefront of my brain.
Hey, that's
I did
good.
a
Yeah.
I did a bunch of hiring in 2022 and 2023. I did a nice round through the beginning of those years, and then since then we've not had to make any major hires, which is nice. Other than kitchen staff and servers and those sorts of things. But in leadership, we've found people and been able to make them stick. Um,
Now,
and they've
do
been
do
wonderful.
you do you do the hiring for the like hourly positions as well, or do you let your managers take the lead
I let
there?
my managers do that. I
Oh,
let
okay,
my
cool.
managers. Yeah, I give them a lot of feedback on it. I will, tag along in an interview. And occasionally, like someone will come across my, I'll see a resume, or I'll just be in the restaurant when they popped in, and then I'll give a recommendation like, hey, this person really like this resume is impressive. I really liked their energy. I never give them I say never. I'm not going to say you have to hire this person, but it was like, hey, if we're needing anybody, this this person seemed like a really good fit. But no, that's
Yeah,
something I like
why would
to
you not
always
hire this person? Yeah.
exactly. Now and again, if we don't have shifts or there's not, and again, sometimes we'll have that conversation. Someone comes in, it's like they're wonderful. It's like, do we have a need? Where is our service at? Are there any issues with the team? We're bringing in someone fresh is gonna help us. We'll have those conversations, but and then other than that, it's just like, hey, earmark this one so that we can go back to it if something changes. And you never know. Sometimes you get back to someone a month or 2 months later, and it's like, actually, I found something, but I don't like it. Then they want to come back. So that can always work out, but it's good. But no, I like to let them hire because um, everybody's hiring as long as they're doing it. That's a great way for them to develop and to grow and learn how to coach the team. It's probably the one aspect where I often and my team does a great job with this, but like it's one of those things where you're like, if I just tightly controlled this, it would like there would be maybe a few less growing pains, but again, those
Hmm.
growing pains are worth it in the long run. So it's like, because they see, oh wait, I should have caught this, I should have, but you just coach them up and talk through it, and it ends up working out. And then also there are a few times we've hired someone that you're like, I don't know if that's a hire I would have made. Um,
They
but then
surprise
that
you.
person,
Yeah.
right, coach ends up being phenomenal.
Hmm.
Um, because either they didn't have enough experience, or maybe there was something that, I would have flagged this, they didn't, but then this person stuck with it, and it's like I don't get it right 100 times, and we often hire in our own image. So if you've hired a manager and you like them to be a part of your team, they're going to find people like them too. So it's like, if you do that, you end up with, it's one way to end up with diversity in your restaurant, of a diversity of personalities and energies, is by letting people do that. And then sometimes it's actually fun to also, like, let the bar manager hire a server, and let the server manager hire a bartender, and like kind of let them
Let
cross
chaos
pollinate.
ensue.
You don't want to overdo it, but sometimes it's interesting. You can have things round out by having your teams, kind of, as long as everybody's talking about what shifts we need covered and all these things, you could end up with some interesting, uh, again, because again, everybody really, it's really shocking how different hiring is manager to manager. That's one of the things I see it over and over again. Just like, even the way, the vibe, the energy people have, manager to manager, is just like totally different. So it's the biggest way I think a manager expresses like who they are in the restaurant. It's just who they are.
Yeah, no, I like that. I did want to ask you, you kind of mentioned the bar program, and one of the things I wrote down, I wanted to make sure I got to talk about today was beer, because I know that that's one of the areas that you were really strong and very proud of what you'd done before you stepped up to the director of operations role. So I'm
Yeah.
more wine heavy, so
Okay.
we're a steakhouse. So I don't know as much about beer, but I just, what is your philosophy when it comes to picking beers, and what do you like? And like, yeah,
So
what?
beer, with beer, um, I got promoted to be director of operation. Excuse me, not director of operations, beverage director, in 2017. Uh, Shortly, about 6-7 months after being promoted to assistant general manager, and taking over the beer program was definitely like where I was enjoying managing before that, but you got to be creative and do some different things, and it was really fun to express, myself in that way. It was also pretty nerve wracking because we had a reputation for being a, sort of a figure in the, especially the imports and craft beer community in Nashville. So I had a decent amount of trepidation taking it over, that I might not be able to uphold that standard, but it ended up going really well. It took me a little while to get my hands around it, but beer is all about, and honestly, this basically goes for, uh, alcoholic beverage kind of across the board, but it's all about the occasion, and it's the
Mm,
right drink for the right moment. So for us, we have a large beer garden. So because of that, we wanted to focus on, local and wider high quality craft American beer, no domestics. And then again, with that beer garden theme, German and Belgian beers both drink well in that space and drink well with the sausages that we make, and they're just really great, beers with food, specifically the, light, fizzy lagers, from Germany, and then in the outdoor, in the summer months, wits and blondes from Belgium
mm,
are just fit the environment, they fit the occasion. And then as we get into winter, the beer colors darken just slightly, and you get a little heavier. You're doing that, and then from there, we wanted to have a large curated list of, bottles. Well, excuse me, we have 11 taps, one tap of root beer, so 12 in total, 11 beers. We later
that's
added a
cool. Yeah.
13 line, so it's a nice size tap list, but not it's not one of the 100 tap places
Mhm.
where you can barely manage it, and it's a challenge to keep the beer fresh. The nice thing was everything could move, but you were also able to rotate. So we had usually 3 to 4 beers we would stick with, and then we would rotate to keep things fresh, both for the staff and the guest. And then we would usually change our bottle list once or twice a year. Not usually a full shake up, but we also kept, the exact number, but we usually keep 70 different bottles and cans around. So weird, funky, interesting things, some crowd pleasers as well. But also from there, we would have big beer training programs for our staff. I really believe in as much as you can to educate your staff, and everybody kind of I feel like some places potentially miss the mark. I know in finer dining it's really important that the staff is super educated on the menu there and usually be able to speak to it, but with us being a little more lowbrow than that, and also having such a breadth of beers to
Mhm.
offer, it's important that they can obviously describe and talk about the beers. But the way I always tell it to my staff is like, you just need to know more than the customer, than the
Yeah.
average customer, and
Yeah.
it
No
doesn't take
no
a lot.
guest no guest is gonna be like,
Yes,
"What are the IBUs on this?" And like, "No,
yes,
no,
yes,
yeah."
exactly.
Yeah, more
But
it's
if you
like,
can,
"What is a wit?" Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But if you can mention that this is a top fermenting ale, brewed at warmer temperatures, and because of that, these fruity notes, it's like just that little bit of pizzazz for the right customer just can heighten someone's experience. Same with, it's a bottom fermenting lager, and there's all these little details you can throw in to just mildly dazzle the right guest. Again, some guests aren't going to care. They're here. I'm here for lunch. I just please bring me the things I asked for. But for certain guests there to that are wanting to have a full on experience, hearing a little bit of detail about where the beer's from, how it's brewed, why it tastes the way it does, and also uh, the average customer doesn't have the most refined palate. They will be like, I like this or I don't like this when they're eating it.
Mhm.
But that's where I always really like for my staff to say, oh, you're getting this beer. There's, it's crisp, it's clean. There's hints of strawberry. Maybe it's a lager, but there's just that like little hint of fruitiness in the back end. The guests won't have been able to. Most customers won't have been able to pick that out. But again, by just feeding just those little things as they're ordering or after they're ordering, um, they'll drink it. They'll be like, "Oh, I do taste that. I wouldn't have tasted it." And that's those little things that can just heighten an experience. So as much as it is about curating a list that's good, it's educating the staff on things that are actually useful to them to increase sales and do that. And I will say though, having done the beverage program for as long as it is, I feel like alcohol is in a different place than it was, um, at this point, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Um, Somewhat people are drinking less. So again, you want to, we maybe want to push guests into, and also people dining out a little differently. They maybe splurge when they go out a little more, but maybe they go out a little less frequently. So you really want to push them potentially to more higher end, unique beers that we have, that are a little higher dollar, and it's less like selling them three of our Kolsch's or whatever it is. It's just things have shifted a little bit. So I think adapting to what your guest is wanting and the like the wider guest, is a great way to do that. But beer is all about the occasion and it rotates a lot with the seasons. But what's really fun is there with German brewing is there was a season of German brewing where they brew certain beers at certain times of the year because historically
The
you only could brew
Oktoberfest, the Märzen, yeah, for sure.
all that stuff. So you can, for us, incorporating that, having a beer garden was very natural for us. So we tried to kind of rope as many of that things in. And again, it's fun. You show up and it's like, oh, we're drinking my box because it's May. And back in Germany, that's when they had to empty the cask to brew the new beer. So this is what we're doing now. And then again into Oktoberfest, again into that. And then there's similar stuff with Belgian brewing and saisons, which could only be brewed during the summer because it only ever got hot enough to brew those in the summer. So it's there's a lot of things you can do, um, very naturally, at least for us. But again, each restaurant, I think, taking this approach is going to work for you in any space. But some places it is like, no, we need domestics because that's our tried and true. But then you're going to curate your cocktail list to tell the story of your restaurant. You're going to curate your wine list to tell the story of your restaurant. Obviously, being a steakhouse, you're going to have some
Gotta have
nice
wine, yeah.
things. You're going to have some really nice fancy bottles. It's just it's unique to every space.
Yeah, well, we can run, features that have, like, rosé in spring and, that sort of
Yeah,
similar
absolutely,
concept, yeah. We
absolutely,
do a
absolutely.
rotating seasonal cocktail list for that reason, which is, same idea, yeah.
Yeah,
Man,
absolutely.
yeah, I was gonna ask, how many people do you have asking for domestics? Because we played with that. We do mostly local, and like that's
Yeah,
always it's just hard to get people off that core site.
it is. It is.
Yeah.
And it's gone up and down. but it's every day. Every
Hmm.
server gets asked, yeah, usually more than once. That being said, we push them to our gaffel kolsch, which is most customers will drink it and like it. Occasionally, it has too much flavor for somebody.
Yeah.
Um, but what what's funny, you can't. I mean, but you it is, but literally it has too much flavor to where if you watered the beer down, they would probably be happy. Just quite literally, just pouring water in it. But that's just what that customer likes, and that's there's no harm, no foul there. But it's interesting that with domestics, the way people are like. Occasionally, there's a guess, and it's like it's literally Bud Light or nothing, or it's literally Miller Light or nothing. And I like the
Hmm.
brand loyalty for some of these
I
beers.
find that most of Mick Ultra, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ultra is one, and I do sort of get it. It is maybe to it is like maybe the least offensive. Just because it is so watery, I don't want to talk down about anything, but I guess I sort of get that. But yeah, it's some people just it's this thing, and that's all they do.
Mhm. Did you ever do the like Cicerone certification or anything like that?
I looked at it. I did look at it, and I studied quite a bit for it, and I just never found the time or made the time to get it done. I absolutely could have passed the like base level beer server one, and I probably still could now. I would have needed to study a little bit more for the true Cicerone level. Um, but I did a little bit of it, and then again, it was just involved enough a process to where I could never make it happen with the day to day operations of the restaurant. But it it
Yeah,
was something I was it was something I wanted to do, and I did like the idea of making my bartenders do it at one point, and we did talk about that. And then again, it just was one. It was just like it's just involved enough to where, and then are we paying for it? Are they paying for it? And what are we going to do there? And
that's always
when
the
did that make?
thing. Yeah,
I
we
know.
we
Yeah,
uh we got most of our service staff and bartenders on the level one sommelier certification, but we did it by paying them back for it. So, which yeah, it's like yeah, if we want them to do it, that's the way to do it. But
yeah,
well,
yeah.
we do half up front, half in 6 months to sort of invest and then have them sit around. So
I love that.
that's worked well.
Yeah.
You mentioned
That's
it.
honestly
Sorry,
keep
you
going.
go. You mentioned your day to day, and that was something I was going to ask about. What does director of operations look like day to day?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I am mostly Monday through Friday, mostly drop-ins on the weekend unless someone's out of town, and then I'll operate a shift depending on the way that schedule fell. But I've mostly found, and obviously if I had to change it, I just mostly found if I take a midweek day off, I end up working anyways because there's just things happening. Which again, if that happens sometimes, it's not a big deal. But if that was your week all the time, maybe that would eventually you try to head off the burnout by watching those things. So typically on Monday through Friday. Monday is my payroll day. We run payroll weekly because we run our tips on payroll.
Cool.
So yeah, so it's an involved process, but we've got it streamlined to where it's not a bear. So Monday is usually a half day from home. Do payroll in the morning. I run that from my house. My server, I'm able to get reports out of Toast. We use Toast as our POS, and then we've got a tip sheet that we use, and my managers keep up day to day. Get all that into payroll. Get all my auditing done and get that submitted, and then usually the end of my Monday is I head off to the food hall to do a check in there, spend some time with that manager, check in on the weekend, see how things are going. If there's something going on east, I'll prioritize getting over there. Then usually Tuesday, like today, is relatively open. I'll take meetings, I'll do some other things that I need, but then I'll usually spend most of my day east. Wednesday mornings, and I may be switching this day soon, but Wednesday I usually operate one shift at east at least, and I'll be the actual manager that day. It's just nice to be able to actually touch the operations and get a good feel for them, because it's a nice way to catch things that someone maybe forgot to mention or something. So I'll do that on my Wednesday, and then one of Thursday or Friday I'll be at the food hall again. Usually Thursdays because the GM there, that's one of his off days, so I'll check on things there. And then Friday is also a mixed bag. So then but then day to day, what I'm doing, it looks very different week to week and for the period of the year.
Firefighter.
Um, yeah, firefighters, but
Yeah.
also we offer health insurance. So my Octobers and Novembers are all about the new, and somewhat of the September is all about getting the new healthcare plan doing, and then and this work is very sporadic, where it's like a ton of it, but then it's like, and then it just comes in and out where you're waiting on emails and things. So it's getting that plan selected, getting it approved by the owner, then getting the staff enrolled, letting everyone know that's full time, they've got offered, and doing that. Summer, there's a lot of filings for our we offer 401ks as well. So
Cool.
summer got a lot of filings with 401ks. There's actually also a lot of, I don't know why all these things are in the summer, but there's quite a few in May, June, and July. There's a bunch of reports that have to be filed, so I have to do all that stuff. And thankfully, our team, with our healthcare team, meaning our broker, is always super helpful. But honestly, all that reporting is like not the most fun. So um, that's that. Usually, the summer is that. And the summer is also is with having a large outdoor space. Spring and summer are our busiest seasons, so that's where we're really focused on volume, and we're really focused on you know actually making the majority of, that's when we're going to be most profitable. So we're focused on that, and then it shifts in the winter where we're focused on bigger projects, cleanings, all those sorts of things happen once the beer gardens close. So then that's where your head's at. And then as you ramp into the spring, that's hiring. So it's working with the team on getting everybody hired and trained up. So it just fluctuates so much day to day. And then you'll be surprised. You'll be like, out of nowhere, you'll be like, there's like kind of nothing going on this week. It's like, and so you just touch base with the team, check on everybody. You just try to find your time. It's where you try to get inspired to have ideas. Like, what thing are we missing? What can we do? And then out of nowhere, you'll have a week where you're like, wow, you get to the end of the week, feel like you didn't do that much. But
Yeah.
you still did. And then the next week, it's like, oh my God, everything that could have ever happened this week has all happened. And a
Mhm.
bunch of people called out and whatever it is. It's like always somehow work and stress and lots of things to do always find themselves. But
Yeah. No. It's like you just explained my life back to me.
yeah,
It's
I know,
funny.
right?
We actually do all of our accounting stuff on Monday too. So I was like, well, that sounds remarkably like what I do, except for we have a 2-week payroll period. But yeah,
We used to, and I would probably like to get back to that, but it's one of those things that
the
we shifted
tips.
to. Yeah, the tips. It's tough making them sit on it,
Hmm.
and then but then we shifted to that during COVID, and everybody was excited about getting paid weekly. Going back to biweekly is like, it's like you have to just do it, but it's hard. So we've got to
Yeah.
we've had discussions, but we're okay doing what.
We have so we have these, either it's overnight into a pay card or you can have your tips deposited, and having
That's
the
fine.
options really let the people that like planning went for the 2 weeks, and the people that don't like that delay went for the card. So
Yeah.
yeah, it means extra
Okay.
paperwork, but it also meant no riots. So yeah,
Yeah, that's nice.
cool. So I had a really fun, interesting hospitality thing happen to me. And I wanted the chance to tell it on air, but I thought I would do it by asking you, do you have a funny hospitality story? Doesn't have to be your restaurant. Something
Yeah.
that stuck with you that, yeah, everyone has
No,
one at least.
no, they do, and I should have prepared something because my mind goes blank with open-ended
Yeah.
questions.
I can buy you some time if you want. So
Yeah, go ahead with yours, and I will jog my memory.
So there's this local restaurant. I'm not going to name it. And technically, they've been like counter service. They sell some other things to go. Haven't really operated as a restaurant, and have recently been trying that. Just a couple small tables. Um, no, not an extensive menu. Just a couple of features. Could probably sit 6 to 8 people altogether. So just a very small operation. And me and my wife have gone there for a lot of things. They have really high quality stuff, some great desserts, a little on the pricey side, whatever. It's clearly a family operation. The kid that runs it is a little clueless, but like the nicest person I've ever met. And just like every time we go in there, we always laugh about the things he says. So they have this kid who's clearly never served anyone in his life, doing the service on Saturday, and me and my wife go and have our lunch there. And it was very good. Service a little strange. Again, he's never served. He's trying his best. Sweet kid. And we get done, and she's Russian, so she loves desserts after meals. It's just baked into their culture. And she asked the kid, "Those desserts over there, could we get one at the table?" And he looked at us and just all sincerity, he said, "Probably." And he just walked away. And me and her just kind of looked at each other and like, "Oh, probably." And we just left it at that.
That's
And I mean,
amazing.
this kid, I know he just didn't think twice about it. It was the most natural response he could have given. But I think I'm going to remember that forever.
I love
Probably,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, he was like, I'm sure they're there for you to buy, but also I guess no one's mentioned it to me yet, so I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know enough to say. I love that. That's hilarious. It is funny with
So,
we hire some young people for like food running and some hosting, and you do when you working with people on their first jobs, or even their first job at a restaurant, you do get some really interesting things that they perceive don't perceive. There's things that seem obvious, and you have to really. I had to learn a few years back that it was like, okay, I've really got to just not assume there's knowledge about anything. Um, Especially as I get older, there's some things that seem obvious to me. They are not obvious to others, but it's so
mm-hmm.
funny.
Yeah, no,
So
I mean, literally yesterday, a kid that we're hiring, starting off as a busser, never worked in a restaurant. I had to call him back. I said, I am going to need you to ask your parents for your social security number because you wrote down 12 numbers here, and I know that can't be right.
that's so
Yes.
that's a classic one. I love that.
Yeah.
So your story reminded me. There was one summer. This is years and years and years ago. I was a teenager, and we used to go to my uncle had a lake house. My great uncle up at Lake Lewis, which is North Carolina near Chimney Rock. And one year we were going up, and we were going through the mountains, and we stopped to eat at a diner, and had the funny the one of the funniest um, service experience I ever had, where I think there were two people working. There was a cook in the back, and there was a waitress. And as she walked up and she kept like slow blinking and came up with a pen and paper to talk to us. And when she was like, "Hello, I'm so sorry," thick Southern accent. She was like, I just got back here from the dentist, and I'm still on my Novocaine. She and so like, I'm gonna get you done, but just bear with me. And I swear to you, she stood there falling asleep in between orders, still on, and I guess she might be the only server there. I don't know. This is a little diner in the middle of nowhere, and it was just so strange. We're like, again, we waited and we ended up eating it. We ended up being fine. She went to the back and was gone for so long, to where you were like,
Is she
you felt like
okay?
like, is anyone even here? What's happening? And that was one of the stranger experiences. She was very sweet, but really just kept slow blinking and closing her eyes for 30, 40 seconds at a time as you just waited. And then she would say, "And what would you like?" It was very, very
Yeah.
interesting.
Are you
Yeah.
familiar with Jeffrey Morgenthaler at all?
I am not.
Bartender out of Portland, Pacific Northwest. He world renowned at this point, but he tells a story. He always says he was the worst bartender when he started, and his very first day in the bar, he was so nervous. He went to a table of all like cowboys, if I remember, and he goes around the circle. It's like, "What would you like?" The guy says Budweiser, and he like writes out the whole word Budweiser, and he's like, "And you?" Budweiser, and he goes, "Okay, one Budweiser." He like writes everyone's. They all have Budweiser. And he comes back and he sets them down one at a time, like marks them off on his notepad. And he said, those people looked at me like I was the craziest person who ever lived. It's like, yeah, you see some weird things with the people who are just starting who, I guess, after the
Yeah.
Novocaine.
Yeah, or whatever it is. But no, it's like, yeah, shorthand. That's what they developed shorthand for. But also for Budweisers, you maybe don't need to write down.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
may, you may be okay there. That's so
It's
funny. But no, it's honestly, you get some weird things from also people that really want to do a good job.
mhm.
They do some of the weirdest things before they're confident in the rhythms of the restaurants. Some of the strangest behaviors are people. It also depends. Some people are very process oriented, and they're not. The way I call it is they're not natural. They think about what they do. And
Yeah,
if you have someone that's very thoughtful about what they do, they will always be bad at something for longer than you think they should be. But in the end, they end up usually being some of your best and fastest employees because they're very thoughtful about what they do,
they finally
but
figured it out. Yeah.
they figured it out. Some people are very natural and they just do stuff they don't think. But usually there's like they get up to speed very quickly, and then there's a really hard cap on like how like the speed and their ability. But they're just very natural. So it's like you need a mix of both. Um, but I've always had to try to tell people when we hired some like especially when we cross trained this one employee we had, and I was like, hey guys, he's gonna seem bad at this, and you're gonna get frustrated. There's gonna be an extra week or two of him being bad at this, I promise, and then it'll be fine. And they were like, okay, we'll play ball. He was training to bar back and it ended up being okay. But you got to meet people where they're at.
Yeah. No, I always tell the managers that I have too. I love people that do the wrong things for the right reasons. And that's kind of
Yeah,
yeah. It's those people
yeah.
that they had the guest at heart when they went above and beyond. They just did it in a weird way. It's like we need to redirect you a little bit back. Yeah.
Well, that's also coachable. That is coachable. People that don't like, and obviously you're going to weed these people out pretty quickly. But if someone just really doesn't care, it's really hard to make someone like actually care about the guests or that. And a lot of people are pretty good at hiding that they don't care, or at least like going through the motions enough. Um, but yeah, no, it's if caring and misaligned caring is usually pretty easy to steer in the correct direction.
And then some people, I mean, some people can hide that they don't, but I don't. I'm thinking of the last server I hired, and just talking to her about her old job, and she had to move because her. I think she moved with her boyfriend, or because her boyfriend moved. I forget exactly why she moved, but just the amount of joy that sparked in her eyes when she was talking about her old job. Like at the end of the interview, I was like, "Do you want to work here? Like,
Yeah,
when do you want to start?"
yeah.
Sometimes you just feel it. You just know it. You know.
That's a great note. I love hearing. I love honest feedback on previous jobs, but it's honestly similar for me when you're in the dating world. If someone is super negative on an ex partner, especially really early on, it's a huge turnoff. It's the same with me in hiring. I don't want to hear that you hated your last job and it was terrible and you were that like one. I don't know you well enough for us to really talk about that way. Some, some honest feedback on things were disorganized there, so I found it hard to thrive. Something like that. That sounds measured and thoughtful. But man, if you're just like, I hate it there, they don't know what they're doing. It's like it's going to be a no for me, dog. I
Yeah,
just
for
don't.
sure.
I really don't like to hear that from people. But and then honestly, hearing that they loved it and they left for whatever reason, and then like when you hear that from someone, that's usually someone you're exactly right. You want to
Yeah.
get them in your building as fast as you can.
It's like right now. We can start training this week. Let's do it.
That's
uh,
awesome.
yeah. Daniel Frazier, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Where should people that are listening, where should they find out more about you? Where they can find your restaurants? And yeah.
Yeah. Thepharmacyburger.com, www.thepharmacyburger.com is our website. You can get us on there. We're the Pharmacy Nashville on Instagram, the Pharmacy Burger on Facebook, and I think we have a TikTok too. But I think if you search pharmacy, it'll come up.
We're too old to know whether or not you have a TikTok. Yes.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I have people that worry about that. I don't think about that very much. But those are the best places to keep up with what we're doing. We post regularly. And yeah, I think that's mainly it there. But yeah, if you're ever in Nashville, we're in the suburb called East Nashville, just over the river. Come sit down and dining. But if you happen to be downtown at the Fifth and Broad, just up from Broadway, or it's on Broadway, but past all the honky tonks, that's where our food hall location is. Please come get a burger and say hi. And then if you're flying through as well, whether just passing through, we're there right outside the AB connection, just to the left of the main gate, and the main security area. So you can come have a burger with us in the airport as well. So we'd love to host you. And also, if you listen to this and you ever do come in, please do say hello. If it's Monday through Friday and it's before 5, 6, 7 o'clock, I'll probably be there, and I'd love to say hi to you.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. And for all those of you listening out there who didn't have pen and paper, I'll have those in the show notes. So yeah, thank you, Daniel. Thanks for taking a few moments to talk to me.
Absolutely. This was fun. This was a blast.
Thanks. Thank you again for listening. That's the end of our show today. My name's Andrew. This is Serves You Right. If you haven't, please subscribe to the show. Everyone who subscribes helps this show grow and get cooler guests on, and it sure does mean a lot to me. We put out new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. We'll see you then. Thanks.